Welcome back to Boom and Bust. We have our monthly conversation with Thomas Caldwell. He is, of course, the chairman of Caldwell Securities in Toronto. Tom, I just want to keep talking about the Bank of Canada rate cut a little bit. What do you expect over the short to medium term in terms of market reaction to that rate cut?
Well, it isn't the rate cut in itself. Is this a trend to lower interest rates? And that will help the economy. That will help mortgages and housing and costs. Inflation, taxes, they bubble right through the economy, and interest rates as well. That's the cost of getting money to do something. So it is very helpful. 25 basis points is not a big thing in itself. It's a bigger thing if you see it as part of a longer-term trend. And as I said, we can't get too far out of step with our American cousins here. Otherwise, we will have a very weak dollar, and that will work against what they're trying to do. But it is a positive, but more in terms of what it's pointing to as a potential trend to lower interest rates generally. 25 basis points isn't going to change the world.
Right. Got it. I just turning back to inflation for a second as well. I think you said this, or maybe we both agreed on this point. Even lower inflation is still inflation. And when you look at food costs, the cost of living for the average person in Canada, it's gone up markedly in the last 3 years, let's say. So, I guess I'm making the point that we shouldn't get too excited, even if inflation is down to 2% or 2.3%, whatever the number is. That's still, when you look at the cost of putting food on the table versus last year, it's still a big problem.
Well, I'm becoming cynical in my old age, Tony, because I don't believe the numbers anymore. Even when they said it was back at 2%, it was never 2%. I mean, I don't know what they include in their basket of goods, but clearly, and it isn't the numbers of inflation now. Everybody say, oh, inflation is down to 2%. That doesn't matter. It's the inflation that's already occurred that people are struggling with. And you correctly said, it's about groceries. Sadly, my wife has not been well for a while, and so I'm doing shopping now. I'm going to the grocery store, and I always buy the more expensive, pepperoni and stuff like this. But I can see that this is pretty expensive for a family to live. And I think I mentioned on your program before, I was taking the streetcar past Timothy Eaton Church in St. Clair. I saw this big lineup going around. I thought maybe I missed an election of some kind. It's a food bank. And a lot of people are accessing these things now. So it's the inflation that's already in the system that people are trying to cope with. Now, my job as a money manager and helping people invest, my job is to remind our clients inflation is a permanent fact of life, period. And you have to invest to stay ahead of inflation. And that inflation number is not what the government's published. I hate to say it, but governments sometimes fib. I know it will be a shock to you. But I know sometimes they skew the numbers to look better. And I don't believe the numbers. I think the numbers are a lot worse than we're being told.
And you're seeing this in Toronto as well. There's a lot of challenges in Toronto these days, aren't there?
Well, they are. And, many of them are unnecessary. I mean, transportation is a total disaster. Whether it be public transportation and infrastructure they built they're not using, purposely curtailing traffic. But even that's part of it, and spending it's right through the whole system. It isn't just transportation. They cannot control the budgets. The city is booming. The buildings being built. But now you're looking at downtown. I see downtown Toronto, lots and lots of stores and restaurants closing. The restaurants downtown, I don't think you need a reservation for anything downtown now. The people aren't coming down. It's too hard, too difficult. So it's a broader issue. It's an attitude from all levels of government. They got to say, what? It's interesting with government. I have this theory, Tony, and you don't have to buy into it because it's one of my theories. Governments try to divide and conquer. They say they got the rich, they got the middle class, and they got the poor. And they always play the poor and middle class against the rich, which is, I don't know what middle class is. But I went from poor to not being quite as poor. But I really think they have to change the thinking to have policies for people who work, are trying at all levels. I don't care what job level you got, but you're working, you're contributing to the system. And those who don't work,
Right.
whether they don't want to or whether they can't. Now, we have to take care of those people as well. But you've got to divide your policies and working and non-working grouping, and then work to support the people who work, and that will help everybody in the process. That's my
We're
theory.
going to continue our conversation. That's okay. Theory is a theory. I accept that. We're going to continue our conversation with Tom Caldwell, of course. We'll be back after these messages. Please stick with us.